The emotion of validation is very, very fascinating. And human beings, we tend to crave validation from people who don't want our validation. It's this really, really weird thing where it's almost as if the person who is just has more going for themselves, maybe has more, whether it's social connections, friendships, business opportunities, physical intimacy opportunities, relationship opportunities, things like that. The person that tends to have more of that tends to crave validation a little bit less. And also if you have more, passion, purpose, things to do, or maybe you just accept yourself more. Maybe you're just more at ease with your place in the world and you don't even have a lot going on. But whatever it takes for you to hit a point where you don't need somebody's validation, this is really, really, really massive. And what tends to happen is that in any social interaction, there tends to be one person reacting more to the other person than that person is reacting to them. So what you want to basically be doing all the time is building your life in a manner where you're always making it to where you don't need that other person's validation. You ever maybe have it where you were about to dump somebody, but then they beat you to the punch, and then you start to wish that they'd come back and want to get their validation? It's completely insane. It doesn't even make any sense, right? You're like, I was thinking of getting out of here last week, then they dumped me, and now I want them back. It's completely crazy how this works. Validation is really this ongoing thread that is massive in most social interactions. Now, if you want to understand it, here's the best way to understand it. We have, you kind of call it like mind, body, and soul. If you're really operating at a deep soul level, I don't think that you're highly driven by validation. But as far as your ego is very, very driven by validation. And even as far as your body that wants to be safe and have different social alliances, it's very, very much triggered by validation. So human beings, we have evolutionary pressure, and we're always trying to use the least amount of time and energy as possible. We're trying to save time and energy. And so if we already have someone's validation and we know that they're very, very available and we don't perceive it as an opportunity, say the word opportunity. If we don't perceive it as an opportunity, then we tend to take them for granted and we tend to devalue them and we tend to deprioritize them. So this is the kind of thing where, I've lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and I've just seen it to where I could even have it to where somebody is like a huge fan of mine and they've wanted to meet me for years. But then if I'm just completely and utterly available, like this person who's like chasing me like a lost puppy to try to get my time, and then as soon as I'm like, I like you, you're my friend, I'm completely available, and they just stop calling. It's like kind of a weird, surprising thing. And that is real. That's a real thing. That's a very, very real thing. Or you'll see it to where maybe somebody who's very attracted to you, but then you give too much validation, they know that you're always there, and because they know you're always there, they will deprioritize you. There's a lack of scarcity. Say the word scarcity. Say the word urgency. Okay, so, and then the biggest thing you have to understand is that in social interaction, your time has to be viewed as an opportunity, not a sale. An opportunity, not a sale. Say that with me. Opportunity, not a sale. So as soon as you come across as selling yourself, as self-qualifying, say that word self-qualifying, needing something, then you pay what's called a wanting it tax. Say that. Okay, you're paying a wanting it tax. So what you want to be doing is always blowing back against that. And that can be done both through the study of what non-neediness looks like. And you can be super needy and creepy, but hide it, okay? That's one level. But I think a better level than doing that is actually working things out internally inside yourself so that you're not needy. But then even another level past that is also your lifestyle can also make you not needy. And so you want to be thinking of it like that. You want to be thinking of it as understanding what the behaviors look like consciously, but also making internal shifts, but also designing your life in a way where you wouldn't have a lot of neediness. And you've got to, and you want to think of this like this bear that you're wrestling with all the time, and you want to really, really get on top of it. And what you're going to find is, if you just master the behavior, it gives a sort of this freaky Frankenstein-esque vibe. If you just master the lifestyle, it's still not enough. And if you just master the inner transformation, it's also not enough, okay? And the reason why is because, look, even if you become this like perfectly enlightened being, at a certain, and you've had this incredible inner shift, at a certain point, you're a human being. You want to have good people around you. So you can sit there kind of like mastering, this like inner non-neediness and authenticity and all this stuff, but at a certain point you're lonely. So you're just fighting your biology at a certain point. So it's not healthy, right? But likewise, you can go meet a ton of people, just kind of like figure out some kind of way to meet a ton of people, but if you don't have your inner self dialed in, then you might have kind of logistically figured out a way to kind of like bring a bunch of people in your life just logistically, and via the way that you set up your life, but it's still kind of weird because inside you don't feel good enough. So then that's also kind of weird. And likewise, you can get all the behaviors of non-neediness down and not validate, like maybe learning to maneuver your body in certain ways or not say certain things. But again, if you don't really have a lot of people in your life, and if also you haven't had that inner shift, then there's always gonna be these little tells. Say the word tells. Tells. Okay, it's like these little small tells. And they can just see that a mile away and you can't hide it. I've generally found that if I'm very, very needy and I want validation, it's almost impossible to consciously hide it. You guys ever notice that? It's amazing how when you just don't care, that it just flows out of you and it's so easy. So let's go back to what I said earlier about this idea of when you meet somebody, my recommendation personally, and everybody's gonna have their own recommendation, I'm just gonna tell you what I found valuable, is invite people out to go and do things that you would be doing anyway, and that they can easily and comfortably leave, but genuinely don't expect anything out of it. It's real. So in other words, if you're meeting somebody who is at a very high level, high social status, very attractive, has a lot going on, maybe they've got a lot of connections, in my personal view, there is so many people who want their time. There is just so many people tearing at them for their time. They are so overwhelmed. Their bandwidth is so monopolized that to get their time is nearly impossible. It really, really is. And so as soon as they, but the thing is, they're human too. Say that after me. They're human too. And what that means, if they're human too, is that despite the fact that they have that many people who want their time, they're still human, and there's still people, like, they still want to get somebody's validation, right? Like, even the most popular person in the world or in-demand person in the world, there's somebody whose validation they want because they're also human. So you want to be always framing yourself as that person who they can kind of obsess over and think about a lot, and you've got to set up your life in that manner so that they have the opportunity to get excited about it, so that they can mentally rehearse in their mind what they're going to say to you, how they're going to act around you. And I can tell you that once you lose that in any person that you're relating with, their behavior towards you is going to be so incredibly different. I cannot even begin to tell you the extent to which that behavior will be absolutely different, okay? So again, your time has to be highly prized. You have to be somebody who is an opportunity, not you're selling yourself at all. You can offer people to come and check in your life a little bit, but you cannot have it to where they're seeing you as wanting something from them, okay? Unless they're already sold on you. If they're absolutely already sold on you, they're all the way there, and there's no need for that because they're just that sold on you, then you can kind of put it out there a little bit more. But even then, I've watched people just completely flip around. I mean, it's just the craziest thing that you've ever, it's unbelievable the extent to which people will flip around, okay? So when you invite somebody out, let's say it's somebody who you're really, really interested in, you want to get it to a point where you really don't have an expectation. And the reason why that is that then they can sense that you are screening them as much as they are screening you. You are screening them as much as they are screening you. And by screening them, that doesn't mean that you have to view them as bad or as like not enough or things like that. It just means that there's maybe somebody cool to talk to for a sec, but not necessarily somebody who you want to go much deeper with. And you've got to have that kind of mindset. And then what that does is when they can see that you're also screening and that you don't want anything, that is encouraging the other person to invest emotionally, to invest their time, their focus, their energy to actually bring something to the table. And again, I've got to really, really emphasize this. I've had it where I'm out with somebody who is just dying to go deeper, whatever that might mean. And literally, as soon as you overvalidate, you are like dead to them. Like you don't even exist. It is intense. Like you will see flip arounds. It is to the point that you could even see this in a several-year relationship. Okay? You could be in a relationship with somebody who's very in demand, and they are in a pattern of really, really valuing your approval, and they value your approval to the point that they're like, marry me or things like that. But then you just hit a point where you're just like, Maybe you like, have a hard time in your business for a little bit. You take a couple hits, and then all of a sudden, like, they kind of become your main source of like happiness because you're just kind of like struggling a little bit for a period of time, and they're out of there. And you may never hear from them ever again. And you're like, but they love me. Like, I don't understand. And it's because you just kind of fell off. And for a lot of people, that's a very, very cold thing to hear. It's really painful to hear that because you're looking for like the love of like your mother kind of thing. But you've got to understand, if somebody has a lot of options, what you're actually asking for them to do, you're actually asking them to give something up to give you their time. Do you realize that? Right? Like, say that you're in a romantic relationship. That's not just you being like, I think that I'm worthy of love. It's not just that. It's not just about your journey of being worthy of love. It's not just that. That's not what you're saying when you're saying, will you love me? What you're really saying is, hey, you could have all of these other people that would do this for you, 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 or maybe you're attracted to people like this. I want you to limit your life experience and cut that off to pander me. That's really what you're saying. It's like it's kind of like you're jacking them. You might as well pull out the gat and be like, yo, and jack them for millions of dollars. Is a lot like what you're doing because they are giving up their opportunities, all the other opportunities that they have so that they can be around you when they have all these other opportunities. So if you're around somebody who has a lot going for themselves, it's not just you being like, hey, can you be my friend? What you're really saying is, hey, can you give up those hours? If it's somebody in business and you say, hey, can you, like people come to me all the time, they say, hey, can you come do lunch? Or hey, let me buy you lunch. I want to pick your brain. And people will say that to me all the time, as if I need a free lunch. As if I need lunch. Think about that. People will say to me, I'll pay you $5,000 to take you to lunch. They say, I get offers like that all the time. There is no way that I could afford to do that. People are shocked by that. Imagine somebody paid you $5K to go to lunch. How can I do $5K to go to lunch? If you actually look at the math of my business, we would be losing so much money from that. And it's not just the lunch, because they want to be friends after, right? It's like, well, I paid you $5K for lunch. Are we friends now? And so on and so forth. So if you're running a business and your time is valuable, like people DM me and they think that I'm just going to sit there like, hey, can you give me some advice on what to do here? I'm like, that you pay for that. Like that's not something that I just go do. And then here's the really weird thing. Because I'm a human being, like one time a month, I'll catch some random DM and it just looks like someone's kind of suffering and I'm like, I can give them a quick answer. It'll lighten up their day. But does it ever really stop there? No, now they think we're BFFs. They're like, we're friends now. So now they have the next question. It's like, wait, hold up. That's not what this was. Like this, I'm just trying to help you a little bit, that's not what this was. And really the reason why I have to be like that is because why should I think about this from my perspective, why would I be giving that time away to somebody random in a DM when I have 3 children? If you have 3 children, why are you DMing people? You see what I'm saying? Why wouldn't I be hanging out with a close friend that I've known for years and years? Why am I DMing people? What does that say about you that you're randomly responding to DMs, not spending time with your children, why wouldn't I be building my business so that I can give my team a raise? Like what, so I don't get a raise this year so you can DM random strangers, Owen? You see where I'm going with this? So people whose time is valuable, they put a premium on their time. And so, you can imagine that from my frame of mind, if I meet somebody and I invite them out, it's real. The screening is real because they're getting your time. So these are different components that you want to think of surrounding validation. Let's look at this broader picture. Okay. The behavior around not over-validating is fairly straightforward, okay? It's simple things. Don't send essay-long text messages to someone who you don't know, okay? It's funny, whenever I come out of a relationship, right? Usually when I come out of a relationship, they want the essay-long text message, and they get annoyed that I'm not sending longer text messages. So I've been trained to be like, yes, babe, like this whole thing. So then I get single again, and I send these like, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to do that. And so it's this thing where it's like, an overly long text shows that you've overthought it, there's too much going on. I mean, if it's a plan to meet up and you need to get into specifics, that's fine. I'm not saying that you can't get specific or handle a logistical issue, but what I'm saying is like, in general, if you're putting too much into it, that's over-validating.
Or overreacting to the situation.
Yeah, so I'll get into that. So basically, let's look at another one. Being too much in somebody's face. Not allowing conversational gaps. Being overly excited at what it is the person's saying. Another one could be like if what you're saying got cut off, are you looping in your mind that you have to self-qualify with this really cool thing that you're gonna say? Or if it gets cut off, you just kind of forget about it and just move on like with the vibe, right? In fact, I'd say that the major thing, if I was to encapsulate all of it, is are you focused on just building the vibe synergistically with the person, or are you trying to get something so you feel like you have to say these certain things in order to get their approval, right? So that, it's funny, I'm giving these different examples, right? Because I could give you examples like, if you turn your feet in too much, or craning your neck in too much, or, making things too big of a deal. Like there's so many little angles that we could talk about, but I think that the kind of catch-all, if you want to just catch all of it, is that when you're talking to somebody, you're building good energy, you're building a vibe of like a cool conversation or jokes or things like that. And if your mind is on genuinely building the joke, if it's genuinely about building the joke, or genuinely about building a cool intellectual conversation or sharing experiences or whatever else, if you just put your focus there, that is probably the single biggest remover of neediness that I could think of off the top of my head, actually. That is absolutely massive. Just go with the vibe. I'm telling you, and it's sad because I know that I'll say that and a lot of you won't remember it. Like you'll hear this and you'll kind of skip over that one nice piece, but just let that little gem there land, that when you're talking to somebody, just allow the vibe to evolve and put it there without wanting something, okay? So that's huge, okay? So again, those are simple behaviors. How about inner shifts? Things like sense of self-worthiness or sense of self-love, or things like letting go of trauma. These are things that are also really, really big as far as when you're talking to somebody, you have a healthy belief. Okay, here, repeat this after me. Belief system. Number 2, letting go of trauma. Number 3, getting present to the moment. 4th, making yourself laugh. Yeah, these are just basic inner shifts that you can make that allow you to become less needy. This is huge. Okay, now how about setting your life up? Another one could be throwing parties. Like the way that I think about it is like, bar and club areas are like lead generation, but then you've got to take, in my view personally, I'm just saying my personal opinion, yes, I can rely just on going out to like a bar or whatever. I can absolutely do that, and I can go meet everybody, and that's really awesome. But I also, like, if I'm on the road and that's kind of how we're rolling for a little bit, hey, let's take it old school, right? I love all that. But it is so much fun. But I also think that at another level, you want to be thinking of like a bar as really just like a lead generation function, right? Because you're out at a bar. But really what you want to be doing is creating get-togethers and parties and networking and so on and so forth, to where you can invite the best people into that. And really, like, at a certain point, there's going to be a critical mass to where you know enough people to where you never have to go out again. Okay, now why do I still like going out? Because there's a lot of other benefits from going out, which teaches you social skills and all these incredible, incredible skills. So there's a lot of side benefits to doing that. That's a big, big reason to go out. But also, so there's like personal growth reasons to go out that are uniquely growth-oriented, regardless of if you need anything or not. I actually recommend people to go out even in relationships or things like that. Just go out and socialize. It's very, very healthy. But another thing is also that I like going out from the component of it being like if I'm in a city where I don't know anybody, and I like going out more so as a function of repopulating lead flow, social lead flow. So if I go out and I spend 3 days out, I find that if I spend 3 days out, now I'm very, very particular about who I'd want to spend time around. I find that if I spend about 3 days out, I'm older now, I'm 42, I'm really particular. I probably meet about 2 people that I'd like to talk to more out of literally the whole weekend out. That's just what I find. It's about 2 people. And I'm going to meet everybody. I'm going to meet the whole entire venue. Like I'm going to just bounce around like a gummy bear, and I'm just like the old gummy bear Disney cartoon, if any of you can remember that. Gummy bears. Okay, so anyway, so I'm just going to bounce around. It's like these little teddy bears that drink gummy berry juice and they bounce. So yeah, look it up. It's awesome. So yeah, basically like literally like a gummy bear. You guys want to hear a funny side story? I remember when I was a kid, I had a dream. There was these trolls, and I dreamed I was a gummy bear, and I was pissing in this troll's face as he was trying to attack me, because like in the show Gummy Bears, the trolls chase the gummy bears, and I dreamt I was pissing in his face, and I woke up and I had pissed the bed. Anyway, okay, so. Well, I'll never forget that. And I was pissing in this troll's face. I was like, think I'm winning. Like, so I'm like, I'm winning. F your face. I'm pissing in your face, Mr. Troll. I was like a kid. Right, and then I woke up covering my own piss. Okay, so anyway, I think about that like once a week. But anyway, so yeah, like the greatest like winning moment to losing moment I ever had in my life. So, you think you're pissing in a troll's face, then you wake up in your own piss. So Yeah, so basically what it is, like a gummy bear from Disney, bouncing around. I'll meet everybody, but I'm very, very specific in people who I'd like to talk to more, because really that's got to be enhancing who I already know. Like, that's got to be taking it to another level of who I've already met. There's got to be something there. So I think about it more, though, as then I can use that to repopulate my lead base. So in other words, if I'm meeting people who I don't want to spend a ton of time with, I may have business owner friends that would like to meet these people. But I don't. But I mean, I respect them and I value them, but I have too much going on. But I have other friends that might want to meet them, or they may have other friends, and so on and so forth. So it's one of these things where I'm meeting a ton of people. There might be one or two people that I meet in a weekend who I'd want to meet, but there's other people that I could invite to a party. But you want to get to a point where you would never have to go out again if you don't want to. Does that make sense? Okay, you'd never have to go out again if you don't want to, because you know so many people that it's not needed for you to go out, okay? And why do I say this, okay? And what's controversial about this? From a base level standpoint, you might say to yourself, well, why do you just need to build some big social circle or whatever? Why do you even need to do that? Why? Because I'm 42, okay? Like, I'm sorry to tell you, if you're 42 years old and you haven't handled that yet, that kind of means you messed up. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, people will say to me, like, oh, you know, you go out, but you know, you live in a fat mansion. I'm like, if you're 42 years old and you don't live in a fat crib, and that wasn't done because maybe you're doing charity or some other intention, you kind of messed up. You kind of blew it. So like, who are you taking advice from if they're in their 40s and they haven't sorted out basic aspects of their life? That's a natural progression. That's not a crutch. That's not a crutch that I require. I've been doing parties in my friends' apartments. I've slept on floors. I've slept in closets. Like, do I need to keep doing that to make the point? I got to sleep on a floor at age 42 to make the point? That doesn't make any sense. So like, I'm in a life situation that I've got that sorted out. You should be at a point by the time that you're like in your early 30s that if you want to have a social circle, you've basically got that built out to a healthy level. That's how you want to think about it. And you do that strategically. That is done with strategy. Also, let me make another point here. Would you ever imagine me filling out a resume for a job? Think about this for a minute, right? Why would I never, what if I stopped doing this? Probably hard to imagine, but what if I did? And I wanted to do something else. Would I ever fill out a resume for a job? No. Why would I not fill out a resume for a job?
People offer you already jobs.
Yeah, because people know who I am, and then I have other possible jobs lined up. It's like, I'm available. I'm not like writing Owen Cook, 1979. Like, I'm not doing that. And you all, if you're by your mid-20s, shouldn't be doing that either. You shouldn't be filling out job resumes. You should have it to where you know other people that are entrepreneurs, that are running businesses, things like that. And if you're available, people are like, wow, they're available? This is like a big freaking deal. Like, they're on the market, they're available. It shouldn't be something like where you're having to go fill out job applications. Now, I understand that many of you are not at that point. I'm not trying to condescend you. I'm just saying that maybe raise your standard a little bit there, okay? So think about it this way. If you're in a position to where you don't need a job, you don't need to go meet anybody, you don't need, like, if to meet someone you're attracted to or who you'd like to network with or do business with, like, you've created that because you've handled that logistically. Then you've also shifted your inner beliefs in a healthy manner, and you've also kind of just learned the general behavioral cues of non-neediness. That's the best situation. Because, by the way, even for me, remember I mentioned that relationship example? Like, I come out of a relationship and I'm just used to doing a really long text to kind of placate my significant other. Well, sometimes I forget, like, I'm not needy. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if I'm not needy, I'll just write whatever I want, right? I'm like, I'm not needy. I'll just write whatever I want. Why do I have to, like, shorten it? That's stupid. I'm just saying this. But you realize over time, if somebody doesn't know you that well, and you're like, like blowing them up, that comes across very, very weird. Now, I'll tell you another thing too. The average person is clueless about this. Why? Because the average person is traumatized, okay? You are probably traumatized. And so what happens is that the mind is in a coping pattern, and because you're in a coping pattern, you lack the ability to even think about this stuff. Now, this is very, very subtle what I'm explaining here, so please, please, please pay attention. When you are deeply traumatized, your mind won't resonate with things that are positive or uplifting. People can put the keys to the universe in front of your face, and you won't be able to see it. This is very, very, please listen to what I'm saying here. I know this because I've been traumatized. And when I get traumatized, what happens is there's this like bandwidth of things that we could talk about. We could talk about things that pain me and frustrate me, and then we could talk about things that would actually make my life actually better. And what happens is I keep looping on the things that are paining me over and over, and the places where I feel victimized. But then when we talk about like, okay, well, that's cool, you've been victimized, it kind of sucks, but why don't we talk about all the opportunity that's in front of you? And I'll talk about that for 10% of the time, and the other 90% I'm just looping on the victimology. Now, I've seen this because I've been around people that are deeply traumatized, and I'm like, I can show you the world, da, 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 you know, right? And like I'm showing them the whole planet, but they can't see it. It's past their bandwidth to be able to see that. They can't let that land because they've been traumatized, so they're only focused on like, well, you know, did I get enough attention from him, or, you know, stuff like that. They can't see that other side of it, and you can be like, but look at the thing, and it's like, I need you to like, cuddle me, or, you know, something like that, because it's this thing where they're not able to resonate with the beauty of God and the beauty of creation. They just need that, they need that immediate thing, right? If someone's addicted to heroin, you could be like, yeah, let's go on a beautiful trip of, you know, all of Texas or something like that, right? And we'll go see the Carlsbad Caverns, and we'll go do all that's in New Mexico, it's nearby. You know, we're gonna go do all that. They can't see it. They're unable to see it because they're in trauma. But the other thing is that a lot of this introspection about how you're coming across requires you to have emotional bandwidth. Like you need to have the bandwidth to do the self-auditing. And so what winds up happening is it's like I'm pissing in the wind here because the exact people in this room that would need to hear this the most are not even able to hear it. So there's this weird loss in translation effect that happens where it's like say out of this entire room, there's about 20% of you that need to hear this the most. It can't even land. Because it's too beautiful of a message. Like, if you did this stuff, your life would get too awesome, so you can't hear it because you're in pain. So it's like a trap. Was there a quick question I saw here? If it's very quick, yeah, you and you. We'll do, okay, you go for it.
How do you get out of that pain?
I'll get that to you in a sec, and yep.
It was the same question. How do you snap people out of that?
In personal growth, what you have is that there has to be an opening. Okay, there has to be some kind of an opening. So all of you have experienced this where you have like an aunt or an uncle and you're trying to show them this stuff and they cannot hear it. There's no way they can hear it. Or I've also even seen it to where I'm actually studying my own growth, but there's these high paradigm type books, like even basic things like Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I'll read that in my early 20s, and then I read that later in my late 20s or early 30s, and it's a completely different book. It's really freaky how well it's able to resonate. It resonates completely differently. There will be people who watch this video, and they'll see it in one way, and they'll be watching it 10 years later, and they'll be like, I feel like I never even saw that video. I didn't even know what he meant. And it super duper duper freaks them out. It's like this crazy thing, okay? So we can only see things that are within, some people will call it like the vibrational frequency that we're in. If we're at a low vibration, we can't see a high vibration idea. Okay, this is also something that gets weaponized by political parties that actually weaponize to get the votes of people in a low vibration state. And rather than being solution oriented, they just feed it. And then it creates this like very dense reality. And it's about real bad stuff that is true. It's not wrong, but it's not also pointing to solutions. And so it's therefore exploitative while ironically posing as the saviors. It's really dark stuff. Really, really dark. It's like a deep indoctrination that's happening that's really sad. So going from that standpoint, you know, if you start to have an opening, maybe you do a little bit of things like trauma release. Maybe you start doing a little bit of that. You remember some of the exercises that we did earlier today, like humanizing people and finding forgiveness as a way to let that out, that poison out of your system. That was a big reason I was talking about that. That's kind of like the bigger picture reason why I kind of did that little rant earlier. You know, another thing is like just starting to socialize or just starting to look at your beliefs, like just asking yourself, well, what are my beliefs about myself? Beginning to look at them and actually studying them and seeing which ones are empowering you is another one. So you can kind of like, really what you're doing is you're trying to find the crack in the dam. Say the word, the crack in the dam. So the crack in the dam for you, say it louder guys, I know it's late. Crack in the dam. Yeah, so finding that crack in the dam is difficult, but there's, you know, somewhere in there is that crack in the dam. And so you've got to say to yourself, well, what do I want to learn first? Do I want to start building out my social skills? Do I want to start building a network? Do I want to start working on my beliefs? Do I want to start meditating? Do I want to let go of trauma? Do I want to try to get around better people that kind of influence me? Do I want to read better books? There's a lot of different sort of inroads that you can use, but the main point being is that you want to be constantly giving blowback around needing too much validation from other people. You want to be fighting back against that and getting it to where you feel better in your own skin all the time. What's the end result of this, right? I was at a great party in Venice Beach just last night. Anybody see that on Instagram? I just kind of posted a bit from it. And I was meeting some really, really great people. And, I'm able to go there and I feel good in my own skin. I don't need to drink. I'll see people there, they're snorting Tootsie at some weird Coke Molly thing or something like that. It's disgusting. Disgusting. Frying holes in their brain. They think it's completely normal. Plowing down weed, drinking alcohol. What, to just be able to go feel normal? Think about that for a minute. If you need weed or alcohol to feel normal, think about the damage that's being done there. Look, I personally, I'm always sober. I don't mind if somebody has like this odd little treat here or there. It's like eating a milkshake, but rots your brain out instead of makes you fat. But it's the kind of thing like, yeah, for a treat, whatever. But if you're using that as a crutch to be able to feel good, or you can't go socialize without snorting freaking Tootsie, man, you are screwed. Okay, you are up crap freaking creek. You are really, really in bad shape if that's where you're at. You need to snort Molly cocaine combination. I mean, you are just clowning yourself real bad, right? But people do that, and if you go out, you'll see a lot of people that use alcohol as a crutch. They're using liquid courage. They're using vaping and weed as a way to emotionally stabilize themselves because they haven't done the work. And the sad thing is that when you do that stuff, it just opens you up to more and more pain. And because it also detrains the mind from emotionally coping. It actually detrains the mind. Right? Like as if, say that you had some kind of like robot leg and it would just do the walking for you, what would happen to the muscle in your leg? It would deteriorate. That's what happens to your baseline ability to sustain a healthy emotional state if you're using crutches. The way these things are intended to be used is, and in their best intention, which I just don't use them at all, the way they're intended to be used is like a party. It's like a rare thing that you do where you kind of like blasted yourself with this whatever, and then you kind of took it to like another level, but you're not using it as a crutch. That would be like the healthier version of it. But I think that the problem with that stuff is so damn addictive that as soon as you start messing with it, you're just, all that you're waiting for is for you to have a bad day, and the next thing you know, you're just stuck on it. So validation shouldn't be coming from external things like drugs or alcohol, you feeling good in your own skin. Really where you want it to be coming from is you being connected to the process itself and you being connected to the present moment. Okay, say the word present moment. Present moment. And say the process itself. Yeah, so it's like you want to be anchoring it to where, if I'm standing up here in front of you, I want to be completely present to the moment, and I want to be feeding off of the process of a flow state of taking action. And anytime that you're getting disconnected from that, you are weakening yourself and you're weakening your core essence at a very, very high level. And there's flywheels that are really getting initiated here, because if you get addicted on external validation or things like that, it creates flywheels in your brain, and it's very, very parasitic. You'll see this where somebody's just used to getting a lot of validation. So now their whole brain is like, get validated, I'm amazing. Get validated, I'm amazing. Get validated, I'm amazing. Well, what winds up happening? It winds up taking over your will. Your conscious will gets taken over because you constantly need that validation. But in addition to that, your discernment gets messed up because your brain, these are like super high level things that I'm just dropping and just blowing over here. But what happens is that your brain doesn't even allow you to perceive reality outside of that flywheel. Like it narrows the bandwidth of what you're even able to process, because it's like, if they're not validating me, whatever. I'm just right here. I'm in this little thing. You're either giving me validation or you don't even exist, which is fine because you want to be around people who value you, but at the same time, it means that you can't even take any other kind of feedback. You're basically not even able to see the world objectively. So now your discernment is messed with. It's a very negative flywheel. You don't want to be in that. And I've seen a lot of people who gain false confidence from that. You don't want that. So you want to get you want to get it to where you have basically set up your life to where you have very, very finely curated belief systems. You've set up your external logistics to where you have lots of different people to meet easily. Like you know where to go to meet people. You have a process to meet people. It's easy to do. You can quickly bring people in your life. It's like nothing. It's literally like nothing. You've set up your whole life like you know where the lead base starts. You have a funnel. You have some kind of an event that you can invite people to. You have other friends doing things that you can invite people to. You have a social media that's functioning properly for you. But you also understand the external behavior. And the more that you do this, and the more that you kind of inoculate yourself against neediness, or inoculate yourself against wanting validation, the more that you can walk up to any person in the world and look them dead in the eye, completely comfortable, not needing anything, not wanting anything, and coming from a frame of being the selector, not the salesperson. Say the word selector. Selector. Not the salesperson. And so what this winds up doing is it gets into where people begin to value you, and they begin to pedestalize you. And so you've got to start asking yourself, are you pedestalizing other people, or are they pedestalizing you? And if you don't get this down, you will see, like, the exact same person who doesn't have this down will be devalued in ways that you can't even imagine. Okay, the devaluation process, you will be devalued and unimportant in ways that you can't even imagine. And when you get this down, you are now owning your power, and people will have respect for you. Say the word own your power. Own your power. Okay, and when you get away from this, you actually give away your power. People can recognize that you have no boundary, you have no value for your time, you have no value for your energy, and that your presence in their life is granted. Because what is the opposite of being taken for granted? It means that you're granting it. Okay, my presence is granted. My time is granted. My energy is granted. My response is granted. By you getting back to your core, you're basically saying, no, my response and time and energy is not granted. Okay, it's based on you interacting with me fairly, and it's based on you bringing some kind of value as well. I'll always give value freely of just sharing and joking and things like that. Like, you know, I'll be joking with the Uber driver, joking with people at the grocery store, joking with people in a bank line, joking with people at a bar or club. That you give away freely, by the way. Subtle point. That's for free. Okay? But the way, you want to know how this all works? You gain energy from just giving out good vibes. You gain energy from just giving out good vibes. So if they want to get like that 5% of what you have to offer where you just give good vibes out for free, that's great. And then that also generates a lot of leads. That generates a lot of social connections.
The law of state transference.
Well, it's that when you're giving, you feel good when you're giving, right? I could be having the worst day ever. If I come here and do a seminar with you guys, I'm going to feel amazing. But the thing, so I get a high off of that because it's getting me in the witnessing consciousness, it's getting me present. I'm enjoying the process itself, and I'm enjoying the energy moving outward. I'm supposed to be needing stuff all the time, right? The beauty of energy moving outward and feeding off that is very constant. When you're needing to receive, you'll find that the world never quite gives you what you want. And so it's like, it's always doing that. When you're present and there's always an outflow, it's very steady and it's just adding energy to you. You don't need to just receive. You can also give, but there's a balance there. So give energy freely. But as far as the deeper parts of you returning a text message, you returning a phone call, you hanging out with them or things like that, you have to be very, very clear in the value that somebody would have to bring and what your boundaries are. You have to value your time, your energy, and all that. But the thing is, a lot of the problem with teaching this is that if we also don't teach you how to, from a pragmatic standpoint, how to meet people, it's kind of BS. I could be like, okay, little chump who doesn't know anybody, doesn't know how to talk to people and sucks, value your time. They've got to jump through your hoops. And you're like, well, nobody is. I'm just kind of sitting here. Nobody's talking to me, et cetera, right? So again, that's why we got to find the crack in the dam. We've got to find that crack in the dam. Are we working on your belief systems? Are we working on getting present? Are we working on letting go of trauma? What are we specifically working on, and how do we get there, okay? And then we've got to keep kind of fixing these cracks in the dam, okay? We got to keep fixing them. And then we've got to keep building you up, but it's also you learning about the pragmatic aspects of meeting new people or bringing new people into your life. And this is where you get to that point where you don't need to apply for a job. You don't need to go out to a bar or club to meet people if you don't want to. I just do it for fun, but I don't have to. You have you have access to some of the best information. You have access to some of the best people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the point that you want to get to. But again, the validation component is what ties a lot of this together. And so you've got to own your power and not just let people run through you. And understand that if you don't own your power, people will absolutely run through you. So you've got to know what your time is worth. You've got to know what your energy is worth. And also, you want to even be building real skills that also add value to people, right? Can I give you guys a couple examples that anybody could start with? Sales writing, learning marketing and sales, massive. Another example would be being a connector. Okay, so the first one's marketing and sales. Say that after me.
Marketing and sales.
Okay, another one is being a connector. Okay? Yeah, being a connector. Okay, another one is good vibes. Can you guys repeat that to me?
Good vibes.
Yeah, another one is good vibes. So let me look at those for like 2 seconds, okay? For some people, if you lack the ability to have real value, then you've got to say to yourself, what are some things of real value that you could bring? Guess what? One of the most highly paid jobs in the world is sales copywriting. Dan Kennedy, who teaches sales copywriting, says he's not in the business of like, I sell flowers, or I sell this, or I sell. He's in the business of making money. Okay? Learning about sales and marketing means that you're in the business of making money because you can use those skills of marketing to transfer to anything. You don't need to go to the business degrees that they'll teach, the business skills that they'll teach you in college that cost a lot of money. You can learn sales copywriting for way, way cheaper than that. And that's something that has no barrier of entry. And the best thing about sales copywriting, businesses don't care about your fancy schmancy degree. They just care about the results that you know how to produce. That's it. So that's a simple skill that you can build. Another one is being a connector. You don't need to go to Harvard to be a social connector. So you can also build value for yourself by learning how to be a social connector. Another one is just good vibes. People just like emotions. So you can also build good vibes. Another one is just knowing where to go, right? That's part of being a connector, things like that. So start asking, so again, you're looking for cracks in the dam. Repeat the word loudly, cracks in the dam.
Cracks in the dam.
So you want to be looking for cracks in the dam because when you're starting off, say you're in your early 20s or whatever age you're at, if you just want to get better, frankly, it's for everybody. You're looking for cracks in the dam, right? It's easy for me to sit up here with a 20-year established business and be like, guys, it's all about just offering value and being in a flow state. And you're like, dude, amazing, like great, Owen, but where's the crack? Where's my crack in the dam? I'm sitting here broke, I'm sitting here stuck, and I'm like, flow state, right? Self-love, it doesn't do anything, right? So you've got to pair that with finding those cracks in the dam, right? I'm at a point in my life where I would never need to go out and go out to a bar club again to be able to meet people. But how do you start that process? Where do you start that? Bars and clubs, or daytime, or whatever, right? That's the crack in the dam. Then you go and start to build that up, and then you go from there. Likewise, I've been in business for 20 years, but this is something to where if you're just getting started or trying to find that next level, then you've got to be looking for those cracks in the dam. And then that's where a lot of the ideas that I teach you guys, like getting in a flow state or adding value or getting into a transcendent state, that's where you start using that on something that is like a real vehicle that you have going, and then it gets very, very, very effective, okay? And you can really, really change your life. And then as you're building all that out, well, then now you own your power more and more and more. Your time is worth more and more and more. Your energy is worth more and more and more. And then your sense of validation is worth more and more and more. Well, now you get to a point, I'm sitting here at 42. I could see just about anybody. I'm just like, hey, how you doing? And I'm happy. I'm not needing anything. I'm not wanting anything. I am genuinely screening. It's genuine. It's not fake. It's very, very real. It's a very, very real screen. It's not a mean screen either. I'm not judging anybody. I just know who I am and where I'm at and what makes sense for me. And so that's the point that you want to get to. That is the sort of sweet spot that you want to get to. And once you've built that, you can really write your own ticket from there. And it's a great place to be in. And any of us have access to it, but it requires strategy and it requires proactive intention. Say the word proactive intention.
Proactive intention.
Okay, so what that means is that it doesn't happen by itself. So they talk about things like be yourself or don't be yourself or things like that. To me, that's kind of a hack to get to this point that I'm talking about, but it's kind of like a very powerful universal truth, like be yourself. It's a very powerful universal truth, but it's also kind of a cop-out, isn't it? Right? If you actually look at what it is that I'm saying here, and not that what I'm saying has to be perfect, but if you look at what I'm saying here in the general direction that we're taking it in, to me, that's what be yourself means at a high level, right? To where you've got these kind of things handled, and when you talk to someone, you're being yourself. But when you're talking about somebody who, has not handled any of these things, I definitely think like, owning who you are and owning your power and being comfortable with yourself is very, very healthy. But, just being comfortable in your own skin, that's kind of entry level, right? That's kind of entry level. It's like, okay, you're comfortable in your own skin, that's cool. Well, what else? Right? It's kind of entry level. It's like I'm having to encourage people as far as being motivated, is very entry level, right? For every one person who needs to be encouraged, there's somebody else who doesn't need to be encouraged. You know what I'm saying, right? They just want it bad. So it's kind of entry level, okay? Like, Timothy S. Grover talks about this. He says, like it drives him crazy when people are like, Timothy S. Grover is the coach of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade. He wrote this book called Relentless and Winning, another one called Winning. And he's like, he has these quotes like, not everyone's gonna be a problem. Not everyone's the man. Not everybody's like, destined for greatness or things like that. He's like, that's kind of like amateur hour. That's entry level, right? The deeper levels of burning motivation that he talks about in Relentless, that's the more advanced level, okay? And so in the same way, when people say, well, just, be authentic or whatever, things like that, to me, that's kind of entry level. And it's sort of like a good place to start, I think, for owning your own comfortability with yourself. And I think it's a good place to end as far as like you've handled your life and you're kind of like, cool, I'm at like a good place. And I think it's actually something good to maintain the entire process through, but it shouldn't become an excuse not to handle the things that I'm talking about here. Okay, so you want to go much, much deeper on it. And if you get serious about it, again, the benefits, easier to make a lot of money, easier to make new friends, easier to have great ideas, opens your mind up, opens up dimensions of your mind that can be very, very helpful, and it's just something where you get to write your own ticket in life. That's really what I'm here to try to show you, is how to write your own ticket in life and how to have a great life. Does that make sense, guys? Yep. Amazing. Well, I'm going to do one last little exercise here, but I want to thank you guys for being here. This was a lot of fun. You guys have fun? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's late, I can see that.